Thank you for staying with us, and we're in the last part of our conversation with Glenda. Glenda, I'm sure you get a lot of questions from people who you do their design for, and I'd like to find out what some of the primary questions are. But an instruction type manual for human design, you know, how does it...
Well, human design is an instruction manual. It's like, can you imagine if when you were born, someone had thought to try your own personal instruction manual on your wrist for your parents? Wouldn't that have been nice?
It would have been hugely different. Hugely different.
Absolutely. You know, our parents do the best they can with the resources they have. But no, human design gives you your own very precise instruction manual for how you operate. It shows parents, if they have children, how their child is designed to operate. And if your child is designed to be a certain way, forcing them into being something else is completely ridiculous. You know, it really is that whole thing of like people keep trying to put square pegs in round holes. You know, it goes on all the time. This, having your own human design chart, shows you which hole you go in. So you don't keep trying to fit yourself into the wrong one and cutting off corners or... You know, we get conditioned by people to be certain things. We are conditioned by our parents from the beginning. We're conditioned by our peers. We're conditioned by the education system. We're conditioned by governments. We're conditioned in so many different ways to be so many different things that it can be very hard to get through that to your true self a lot of the time. Whereas if you have your own personal little instruction manual, you know who you are.
We can sort of wear it in our forehead.
Yes.
So therefore it's important then for parents to know theirs.
Yes.
Because until they understand theirs, they're not going to understand for the child.
Exactly. And, you know, I know several families working with human design as a family, and they have said that if they didn't understand that, they'd have their children in therapy. And I've actually seen their little boy who's about 5. He can be high and happy and he's bouncing along, and in a split second, he's dragging his feet and his lips dropped. His emotional wave is that fast. I was like, how does he do that? And then he comes back up again.
Gosh, that could almost be diagnosed as a little bit of bipolar.
Oh, absolutely.
In the wrong hands.
Absolutely. You know, he could have been labelled and all sorts of things, but he has parents who understand that that's how he operates, and that's all he needs to do is just be allowed to be in his own space. And it's not about, oh, what's wrong with you? It's just, they encourage him to, you know, maybe do some writing or draw, you know, do some drawing or listen to some music to use his creative energy. Because when you're down on your wave, if you have the emotional wave, it's a very creative time. You know, we live in this society where emotions are seen as bad and negative, but if you look at the creative process, none of the music and the art and the literature that truly moves us on a deep level would be possible if people didn't have these deep emotions.
Okay. Things like ADD, ADHD.
Yeah. Well, you can see in someone's chart what's going on there, and absolutely there are certain things called pressure centres, and if you have a child that has open pressure centres and they're sitting next to somebody who pumps that energy up, they're bouncing around the room like a rocket.
Wow. Okay, so this isn't a plug or telling parents you should do this, alrighty? But you know what I'm hearing here from you now is, firstly, it's a good idea because the more information we know about ourselves and others, the more we can start working together in harmony. But if you've got a child that's perceived to have some behavioural problems, for gosh sakes, then maybe have a look at human design.
Absolutely, and you know, human design is definitely got no shoulds in it. So if someone feels that it's the right thing for them, yes, they can actually access some of our information for free and have a look at it. But it's it's such a gift to see children being allowed to be themselves.
Okay, and then of course it begs the next question, relationships. If you've got two people in relationship that are, you know, really pulling and tugging, perhaps if they understood more about, can you share a bit of that?
Most definitely. It's a recent case. I had a client who she has had her design done, her husband hasn't had his done, and she desperately wants him to be like her. And so I printed his chart out and put it next to hers and said, do they look the same? She's like, well, no. I said, yeah, he's completely different to you. And that's completely changed their relationship. Just that couple of minutes where she could actually see But if I've actually got the couples, if the couple have both had readings, what I get them to do is actually listen to each other's reading. There is actually a whole relationship reading and process we go through, but we really encourage people to actually live their own design for at least a year before they try and do that, because you have to understand yourself before you start going into working at that level with somebody else. But definitely listening to each other's chart reading in relationships makes a huge, huge difference, because you go, oh, they're designed to do that. Oh, well, I won't complain about it.
Okay, so what was it that that woman learnt about her partner that changed that around?
Well, she learnt that basically he's here to just go with his own flow, and she's here, she's actually a manifestor, she's here to move it and shake it and go out there and make it all happen. And he's not, he's a generator.
Which he's meant to be...
waiting for things to come to him, and he does it from a very intuitive space. And when I explained that to her, she could actually see that, because she's been married to him for about 20 years. So it was really great.
Wow. And do you see those sorts of changes? You must see them all the time.
Oh, yes. And, you know, again, someone said the other day they came home from work and their partner was sitting on the lounge with a black cloud over their head. And it's another emotionally defined person. And instead of going, oh, what's wrong? They just went, oh, okay, I'll be back later.
And left them have their own...
Yeah. It just takes all the pressure out of having to be certain ways and analysing everything and controlling each other. It just allows the space for you to be who you are.
Okay. What would be some of the questions that you would be commonly asked?
Well, how will it, how does it work? Lots of people want to know questions about things that human design doesn't cover. A lot of people want to know about their future. You know, what's going to happen? Am I going to meet Prince Charming or whatever, or win lotto? A lot of people want to know about their careers and success and things like that, and we can definitely help with those things. There's no guarantee of, being Richard Branson, though. We can just help you with your career. They're the main things people really want to know about is, relationships and success and money. That's what most people want to know about.
Okay. Now we're just going to show a couple of the aspects of human design.
Yes.
The first one here is the actual chart itself.
Yes.
Can you just briefly talk about that?
Well, the chart, you'll see there's 9 geometric shapes in the chart, and some of them are coloured in and some of them are white. And those different shapes have different influences depending on what's going on in your chart. In between the geometric shapes, you'll notice that there are lines that we call channels, and some of those channels are coloured in and some of them are red and some of them are black. Some of them are red and black and some of them are white. And then beside the chart, you'll see there's 2 columns each side of it. One column's a red column of numbers, the other column's a black column of numbers. And in those, they are what's called the gates that are in the chart, and they're derived from the I Ching. And where the planets are at the time of your birth says which ones of those are activated and in your chart.
Okay. If you were someone perhaps, I don't know, leaving school, wondering what to do with your future, or let's say you're someone having a midlife crisis, how would they benefit?
They would benefit for a few things. Well, knowing how to make a decision that's right for you at either of those stages is the best gift on the planet, because you're faced with many decisions that could take you in all sorts of directions. So if you understand how you make decisions, understanding your profile can also be really important. There's a part called the profile where there are some people who their opportunities come to them through their networks and their friends. There are other people where their opportunities come to them through trial and error. It's just very different, and how that works and understanding that if you're someone whose opportunities are supposed to come to you through your networks and friends, if something comes to you from a stranger, it's the wrong thing for you. And underneath that, there are the aspects, there's the incarnation cross and the circuitry, which shows that it can really show your aptitudes and the things you're good at. Some people are very logical, some people are very abstract, some people are very creative. It's just looking at those different things. So if someone's really logical and they're thinking of studying science, I'd go, that's fantastic. If someone's really abstract and creative and they're thinking of studying science, I'd probably get them to do a bit more research on that.
or go into a more investigative side of it, perhaps. Yeah.
I just actually thought of an example. One client who she has in her chart what's called the channel of making music. And that was one of my first questions when I met her, was like, you know, do you sing, do you like music, do you make music? And she had, when she was younger, she wanted to be an opera singer, but she hadn't done it because of familial conditioning, and had since gone into a very, very corporate environment and actually had no music in her life.
Wow.
And she was quite shocked when I was like, well, I think you really need to get some music in your life. It doesn't mean she needs to become a professional musician, but it was just interesting that she's actually got that in her chart, that she's here for making music. And she'd been taken away from that by, she had to do a, you know, normal, you know, the normal life.
Okay. So if someone's, you know, listening to this, and it's like, well, how did human design get to be on the planet? You know?
How did human design get to be on the planet? Well, not through me.
You just brought it to Australia.
Yes, I brought it to Australia with my business partner.
Yeah.
But there's a guy called Ra-Uruhu. That is not his English name, but that's the name he has now. He was living on an island near Spain, basically dropped out. Very logical man, coming from a background of both business and science. And he had this experience, which lasted for 8 days and nights, where he received this information that is the human design.
Wow. As in like channeled and...
He doesn't really like to use the words channeled, and I've heard, like, he's actually done a documentary on the actual experience, and there were definitely different entities and energies involved in it, but it's not channeling how we experience it. And as he said, it was deeply unpleasant and incredibly physically painful when this energy took over. And then he wandered around for a couple of years deciding whether he'd gone mad or not, because not having known what his astrology sign was or what the I Ching was and all those things, and suddenly having this dropped in his lap was quite a challenge, to put it mildly.
So he wasn't into any of this sort of stuff?
No. Oh no.
It's the usual story again, isn't it?
He thought it was for, you know, those woo-woo fairy people. And so he wandered around for a couple of years and worked out that no, he hadn't actually gone mad. And the pressure inside him to start bringing the information out was very intense. This is over 20 years ago. He received the information in 1987.
Right.
And it was around the time of a stellar event where a supernova exploded, and it was actually visible from Earth when this supernova exploded, and that was when he received the information, because the information for that travelled on what are called neutrinos, and human design has a lot of information from neutrinos involved in it. The information comes from the planets, and it's like there's trillions and trillions of neutrinos pass through a space the size of your thumbnail.
Wow.
Every second.
Wow.
They're tiny, tiny little particles, and they pass through, they pick up information and they drop off information. So they pass through a planet and they pick up information, and they pass through you and they drop it off.
Now people can Google that and research for themselves.
They can Google neutrinos and research it for themselves. They have been proven to have mass. They are quite an amazing, and Pirelli tyres have been researching how they can actually use neutrinos instead of optical cable as a communication system. So.
Oh, how brilliant would that be?
Brilliant but scary at the same time. I'm not so sure about having all those neutrinos flying through me. I'm just not
that's not a good thing?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
I thought it'd be a good thing. Okay.
It could be a good thing. We'll find out when we get there. The intention's good. I'm not sure about the outcome.
Okay. Wow.
And so, so he received all of this information and then has been slowly releasing parts of it over the last 20 years because it's an incredibly dense body of knowledge. And he didn't release it all straight away because it needed to be built on step by step by step by step. But now there's, as I mentioned, there's 17 national organisations, there's thousands of analysts. It's very big in Europe and America and the UK. And we're taking it to the streets in Australia.
You certainly are. Glenda, thank you so much for being on the show, finally.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. It's certainly a really interesting modality, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I've studied many, many, many things over the years, and nothing has ever held my attention for this length of time.
Okay.
I just can't get enough of it.
Well, if you're interested to find out more about Glenda and human design, you can go on to conversationswithrobyn.com. You'll see the guests and topics section, and you'll see a link to Glenda and her website. Take care until next time, and see you again soon.